Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello everybody, welcome to the potty. I am super excited about this episode that is about to be shared into your ears. Our wonderful client, Kimberley, has come onto the podcast today to very bravely, honestly, and in great detail, she is sharing her healing story with us today, her journey throughout the Ending Body Burnout Method, which has been a journey. So when you listen to Kimberley's story, you'll soon find out that she had a whole host of weird health issues early on in life. So the moment that she hit 18 and her adult life, she had debilitating migraines, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, as well as a lifetime of trauma and her system really being stuck in fight-flight. And today we dig into her journey, what that looked like for her, doing the lab testing, physical side of things, and how that validated some of these symptoms that she was getting, and then the real healing, or the deeper healing that happened as she worked through the metaphysical, deeper root causes, identified unconscious core beliefs that were perpetuating her old patterns of people-pleasing, rescuing, over-responsibility, perfectionism type patterns, and really preventing her body from healing. We also dig into what she did to be able to rewire and reprogram and also clear past traumas. And I just want to say, I've said it to Kimberley during the recording, but also just again, how grateful we are that she was so happy and so open and honest with sharing her story. I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people. You'll also hear that this was a spiritual journey for her as well. So she really felt like she was led to discovering us. And it's a funny story how she did discover us. It was the very first podcast she'd ever listened to, and it just happened to land in her Facebook feed. And she's like, I might listen to that randomly. And life has been different ever since. So, as you listen to this, give Kimberley some virtual energetic love and gratitude. And also just a reminder that our doors to our Ending Body Burnout Method the Ending Body Burnout Method program, our 6-month healing accelerator program, the doors do open next week, which is super exciting. We only open doors 3 times a year, and this is the first time this year. Doors are only open for 7 days. So if you're interested in working with us and you really resonate with the way that Kimberley has worked through her own healing of both the physical and the metaphysical, and really working on herself in a holistic way, if this really resonates with you, I definitely recommend to drop down to the show notes and to pop your name on the wait list for the program. If the doors haven't opened yet, we do have $500 worth of early bird bonuses that are exclusive for those on the wait list. And also, if you're curious to learn more, to be in our space, to get some live experience of what it is like to work with us and inside our method, we're also hosting a free coaching week next week called unravel perfectionism and body burnout. So this is where we're going to dig in on day one to the different body systems and the physical imbalances that occur when you're running perfectionism, overdoing, people-pleasing type patterns. On day two, we're going to go into identifying the deepest root cause of why you're in a state of body burnout and running these patterns in the first place. And on day three, we're going to focus a bit more on lifestyle. So looking at food and move, but in a way that isn't going to be like do this, do that, although there will be recommendations of how to heal yourself using food and move if you are in a state of body burnout, but really in a way that's going to help unravel perfectionism, overdoing, all or nothing type patterns that can prevent you from healing, cause more burnout, or cause you to go into analysis paralysis or procrastination and not do anything about your health. So that'll be fun. And all these things that we are going to cover in the coaching week is threaded throughout this conversation with Kimberley as well. And then we do have one free webinar as well on Monday, the 27th, which is helping you to break through the 5 most common blocks that people have when it comes to healing. So if you would like to come along to our free coaching experience, we have had people come along to these and actually get so much out of it, even some transformations. The emails, the comments that we get live on the call and the emails, messages afterwards, there are people that are actually having pretty phenomenal shifts with our free live coaching week. And, you know, so if you're not even interested in joining the program, I'd still come along. And if you are interested, it's a really nice way of just seeing if you vibe with the way that we approach healing and the healing journey. So anyway, let's dive into today's episode with Kimberley.
G'day guys, and welcome to this episode of the Ending Body Burnout Show. We have a really exciting episode for you today. One of our clients who has worked with us, Kimberley, is joining us today for a little bit of a chat and a conversation around her experiences. Thanks so much everybody for joining us, and thanks Kim for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yay! We are so excited. I've been excited for so long. In fact, I think I asked you ages ago and you're like, not ready yet. And now the time is right. So yes. With most of our clients who start working with us, there's usually like a backstory. It's pretty rare that someone gets an acute symptom and then they reach out to us. A lot of the times there is a bit of a journey leading up to even starting the Ending Body Burnout Method program. So are you happy for some context to share like when this all started really, like when your body started showing signs of symptoms and your mental health as well?
Yeah. So I've been putting a lot of thought into speaking with you, and I knew there was a lot, but it was interesting to actually write it down and try and remember, and in order of sort of what happened and when, and it's no surprise really that I ended up with you. So basically my whole adult life I've had health issues. I moved out of home when I was 18, and I soon realised I couldn't get out of bed. I soon was feeling like I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. And interestingly, when I think about that time, there was a lot that had gone on. My brother had almost died and had been on life support and in hospital for a number of months, and I'd had a number of deaths in a short space of time. Even moving out of home was a big deal in itself. So I took myself to the doctor, and I was quite convinced that he would tell me that I was depressed and that's why I couldn't get myself out of bed. I was certain that that's what he would say, because I certainly, like, life painted that picture. Mm. So he ran some blood tests, and he discovered that I had low levels of iron. So that was the first I found out that I had low iron, which has been something I have actually had issues with sort of on and off over the years. Interestingly too, though, that was probably the first time in my life I realised that you could feel a certain way and have a physical reason for it, which was probably a good thing for me considering where my life went after that, to actually look for answers rather than just accept, oh, I'm feeling this way because of circumstances or, whatever. So anyway, moving on from then, I had bad headaches on and off for a while, which we thought might be caused by wisdom teeth, which were impacted. I had them removed, but the headaches didn't go away. When I was 19, I threw a surprise party for my boyfriend, which was a pretty big deal for a 19-year-old. And I ended up with the worst migraine I'd ever had after the party. It was horrendous. The following year, I had a few more migraines, but they weren't consistent and they were very random. I wasn't overly concerned. I mean, it was interesting that I was having these migraines, but it wasn't a big worry. A year later, I married my boyfriend, and the first year we were married, my migraines were out of control and we hardly went out. It was an awful start to being married. It got to the point where people stopped inviting us out and, which was hard as well because we were only young. And a family member later told me that until they had their first experience with migraine, that they thought I'd been using it as an excuse to get out of things because, if someone has a bad headache and, you just say take a pill. Yeah. But no, these migraines were debilitating. So, at one point, I took leave without pay from work to see specialists and have counselling to see if something would help. Specialists put me on various medications, which really didn't do much. They only caused side effects. One medication caused significant weight gain. I put on 8 kilos in 6 weeks, but I was hardly eating.
Crazy.
That was also really tough mentally. As a young woman who'd always been really thin to all of a sudden jump 2 dress sizes. I was actually maid of honour for a good friend, and the dressmaker had to come out on the wedding day to adjust my dress.
Wow.
Because I just kept putting on weight.
Wow.
Which was awful. It was really embarrassing. And, there was no reason for it other than this medication, which actually did nothing for my headaches, for my migraines.
Maybe made them worse.
After we were married. It was
with the stress.
Yeah. So a year after, and it was really stressful. And the thing that was stressful too was when I would talk to the specialist and tell her, this isn't working for me. And the response was, oh, well, we'll just try the next medication on the list. There was no real listening to where I was coming from or what I was saying. It was just, okay, next pill, let's try this.
Yeah.
And one pill I was put on was for epileptics, and the pharmacist actually asked me when I filled the script for the first time why I was filling it, and I told her it was for migraines, and she was just like, this is like the last thing I would try.
Wow. And
I'd been getting really bad chest pains from it. So after that, I decided to give up that specialist and stop those pills. A year after we were married, my husband was made redundant, and we decided the best option for him was to go back to uni full time. There was no payout with that redundancy, so it was an interesting time. After unsuccessful, experiences with regular specialists, we found a doctor of environmental science, and he started to give me some hope. What he said and the way he approached treating my health issues resonated. Interestingly, at my first consult with him, he asked if I was a conscientious person. He said he often saw that conscientious people ended up with migraines, which I thought was an interesting comment.
Yeah.
So there was something to do with, my personality and my perfectionism.
We'll call
even
it
back
patterns.
then. Yes, that connected there with that. I did everything that he said. I took everything he prescribed. I needed him, and I was seeing that I was getting some results. He really did give me hope. I did elimination diets. I went through desensitization to certain allergens. I found receipts recently, and back in 2003, when our take-home pay, well, my take-home pay was $405 a week. I was getting $10 a week Centrelink rent assistance.
Wow, is that all?
I was yeah.
Thanks,
We were
Centrelink.
married, so
$10. Oh.
Yeah. Well, he was my dependent because we were married.
Yeah, right.
Had we been living together, he would have gotten full support. But anyway, I found receipts, back then, and I was spending around $50 a pop on supplements. So the price of supplements hasn't really changed, interestingly, since back then, although, compared to our income it has. At one point I was taking 11 supplements a day. I don't know how we managed financially.
So
we didn't really.
Yeah, like did you just get credit cards or?
Yeah.
Just went into debt.
So we got credit cards.
Yeah.
And we just went into debt.
Yeah.
We sold everything we had that was worth anything.
Yeah, wow.
My husband, partly because, he was going to uni and he needed a computer as well. But he sold a car that he had. We sold everything we could to get through that year.
Can I ask a couple of questions around that? Because I know that there will definitely be people who are like, oh, I really need to do something, but I just can't afford it. And whether that's a story or it's actually reality is what was your reasoning or logicking around, I can do this, I'm going to find the money, even if I go into debt? Like, I'm just curious what was happening in your psyche.
I had to do something.
Yeah.
I actually am a very conservative person when it comes to money. My husband and I are, so it's not.
We've had many money talks.
It wasn't an easy. On the one hand, it wasn't an easy decision, and yet on the other hand, it was just something I had to do. Like, my migraines were so bad that I could understand. I wasn't suicidal, but I could understand how people would get to the point in life for different reasons of choosing to leave this world. Like, I really could. And this doctor he gave me hope. I was seeing some results. I felt I had no other option but to pursue that. I guess there was part of me that, was at uni, but at the same time, we knew one day he'd have an income again and we could deal with it later. I never thought of bankruptcy, but we had nothing else, so I suppose we could have claimed it. I don't know. I just think it was just a matter of we just had to. Yeah. We just had to do it.
It was like a necessity.
It was a matter of, it just was. So we would joke that our dates were at the local hospital emergency, where he'd take me for the injections to stop me vomiting when the pain was too bad, which were too often. I had chronic fatigue, which continued on and off over the years. And then when I was around 23, the migraines stopped. They just stopped one day.
Do you, now knowing everything that you know about yourself and the deeper root causes, which we'll get into later, have you ever thought back in hindsight, it's like, that's why they stopped?
So do you know, I worked with a lady, I was actually her assistant, and I was having days off with my migraines, and she came to me one day and sat face to face with me and said, you have got to stop having migraines.
Oh.
You cannot be having days off. And I remember thinking she was saying it from a place of her own anxiety, because she needed me. She needed me to help her. And I could see that's where it was coming from. But it actually kind of spoke to me somehow. It really hit me. Like, that part of me thought, if only I could just stop having days off, and maybe she didn't even fully accept the truth behind the reality of what my days at home with a migraine actually looked like, versus just having a sickie. I don't know. But those words, they did strike a chord, and I do wonder, I can't pinpoint a conscious change in thinking or behavior or anything, but I do wonder what happened at that point that they did stop. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't back there at 23 years old to have a conversation with 23-year-old Kimberley, but
Yeah.
I wonder if it was something to do with maybe people pleasing, rescuing, over responsibility patterns that I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
That was almost like the unconscious mind was like, oh, it's been like I've been protecting Kimberley by keeping her at home, but actually now there's a real need for her to step up and to help this person. I don't know. I'm just like, that's interesting. So it's like, oh, okay, well, it's safe. Like it's almost like putting the energy into
and
that.
like we were more established in our marriage by then, and my husband was working then, possibly. I don't know.
Anyway.
But I do think, I don't have the answer, but I do think there must have been a shift with, what I know now. And like I said, even that comment, there's something about that comment that always stuck with me and spoke to me. So I didn't get my driver's license till I was 24, which was interesting. I was on painkillers so often that I didn't feel confident to drive. We'd been told to hold off having children because my body was in such a mess. My liver wasn't working well. And then, of course, on top of the pain, which meant I could hardly look after myself sometimes. And all I ever wanted to do was to be a mum. So I was okay with putting it off, I suppose, because I wasn't old. It was. I had plenty of time ahead of me, but that was a thing in itself. We had our first baby just before I turned 26, and she had health issues of her own and didn't sleep. When she was 2, she was diagnosed with sleep apnea. She had her tonsils and adenoids removed just before our second child was born. In the first 5 years of being parents, my husband and I literally hardly ever had a full night's sleep. I would say we could have counted on 2 hands the number of full nights of sleep we had in the first 5 years. No exaggeration. And that caused problems too for our health and for my husband's health. I mean, you need sleep. I wasn't very well when I was pregnant with our first child. I vomited pretty regularly and was very tired. But my second pregnancy was awful. I vomited all the time, right up until the end. I remember ringing my husband one day and saying to him, after about my 4th vomit of the morning, if you want a son, you better pray this is a boy because I'm not doing this again. It was shocking.
I don't think you ended up having any boys, did you? You just got girls.
2 girls. 2 girls. So, so I would lie around as much as I could and I had a very energetic toddler, so that wasn't often. Our second child moved into the wrong position at around 36 weeks gestation, so we ended up having a C-section because I'd had an emergency the first time around. After the cesarean, my uterus wouldn't contract and I had multiple blood transfusions. After 3 bags, my veins collapsed and I wasn't able to have any more. The doctor wanted me to have more because my count hadn't come up as much as he would have liked, but it wasn't an option. And then I kept bleeding excessively for about 12 months after her birth.
Wow.
Until I had a procedure which stopped the bleeding. That was all an interesting time too, because I was told I couldn't have more children. And I was like, can't you just go in and plan a hysterectomy? If I have a third, can't you just go in and just do it all at once? And they were like, no, well, you need to be stable enough for us to do that. And we don't think you will be. And we weren't by then. We weren't in a great place in our marriage either. All of this had taken its toll, the financial pressures and the sleepless nights and the health issues impacting life and the people-pleasing patterns that were, presenting with not wanting to let family down and saying yes to everything we could and doing too much. And so I went through a stage then when I really felt like I was used goods. I couldn't have children anymore, which was all I had wanted in my life ever to do, was to have babies. And I had a husband who I didn't know if he loved me anymore. And health was not great, and it was a pretty low time. So a little while after she was born, my second, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And the worst of the pain that I would have was in my arms. If I had to lift my arms staying washing on the line, it was almost unbearable. Sometimes the pain was just unreal, like through my whole body. And the fatigue, I mean, I'd had chronic fatigue on and off, but this was intense. If I tried to push myself too hard, I could end up in bed for days, absolutely wiped out, which wasn't helpful with two small children. It hurt just to be touched. I remember one mum commenting once that when she went to hug me that I'd pull away. And I think she was feeling like I didn't want to hug her and was wondering why, I was behaving that way, because I was usually a touchy-feely person. I'm a hugger. And I explained to her that just to touch my skin would hurt, like everything hurt. I didn't realise I was pulling away from being hugged, but, everything hurt. Somewhere along the way, I had a bleed from the bowel. I had a touchy tummy on and off over the years, but this particular occasion I had a big problem, and I ended up having colonoscopy and endoscopy. I was diagnosed with irritable bowel and medicated as I was on the verge of stomach ulcers, so they gave me something to take for that. Further down the track, I started having anaphylactic reactions. We don't know why. The immunologist came up with a reason he felt could be a cause, which I'll get to in a minute, but I had some high stress moments around that time, and I could see a connection to the high stress points and these anaphylactic reactions.
Yeah.
So the immunologist thought I might have Helicobacter pylori, a bug in my gut, as in his experience he had seen people have anaphylaxis with this H. pylori. So he treated me with antibiotics. We ran bloods. We found that, yes, the count was high, so he decided to treat me with antibiotics for the H. pylori. I was allergic to the first lot of antibiotics, and the second type they tried didn't kill the bug. I had an endoscopy sometime later, and the gastroenterologist took sample and grew a culture. Apparently sometimes they can't grow a culture, but they managed to grow a culture to try and pinpoint the antibiotics to use. We tried what was considered the best option first, but it didn't work. And the alternative options were really hardcore antibiotics. The gastroenterologist told me that they would wipe out my system if we used them, and he really wouldn't want to touch them. I think one's used for TB and one might be used for malaria.
Wow.
And by that point in time, I was so over it. I was over trying to take these antibiotics to treat it. And, mostly I know it's not a good thing to have, but mostly it wasn't causing symptoms. And in the big scheme of everything that was going on, I just put that in the too hard basket.
Yeah.
So my health continued to be complicated. I had various autoimmune disease symptoms, skin growths and other symptoms that were obvious, that I would go to the doctor and he could see what I was talking about. But whenever we would go to a specialist, they couldn't diagnose an umbrella condition. So let's just say it seems I've always had random symptoms, but rarely an explanation.
Yeah.
Story of my life.
Has been. Had been.
Absolutely. Yes. Until recently.
Yeah. Okay. So then at this point
can I just jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. That was and I know so some of our listeners are probably like, whoa. Okay. And it like the list.
Resonate.
Yeah, like really resonating with what you've said, but I think from like a quantity perspective, we're not just talking about I had a thing happen, like I've been writing notes I got a full page of notes, right?
And there's more that I haven't included.
This is just chapter 1.
Right.
This is just,
And
there's a lot
I just
going
think,
on.
I think, there was a lot going on, and I think some of our listeners might be in two camps. It's like, I don't have that much stuff going on, or some might be like, wow, that's me.
Like me.
I feel like that's me. So I just wanted to say, just address that and just say, thank you so much for sharing this. Keep going. Sorry, that was my little input there. Just thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. Even though it might not be in its entirety, it's still in detail enough to say, like, this wasn't just one thing. It was an accumulation of stuff happening over time.
Yeah.
Causing a lot of issues.
it was. And at the same time, I can understand how any number of those one things for one person, can still be huge too.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Okay. So then 2023 came along, and this is when we met as well. Now, you have a pretty incredible story in terms of how you came into our space. Are you happy to share it? Because I think it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. So the start of 2023, I kept having this thought, I need to deal with H. pylori. It was more like, you need to deal with H. pylori and your past. And they were together. You need to deal with your Helicobacter pylori and your past. And for me, I'm a Christian and I believe in God. And for me, this was 100% a God thing, like 100% him leading me with where to go next. And the thought would come to me on repeat. But I kept thinking, that's all well good, but how? How the heck? For one thing, my past, like trauma and stressful stuff that needed to be dealt with, was huge. And then the H. pylori, I'd grown a culture from an endoscopy, we tried antibiotics. I knew what the doctor had said were the next options for the antibiotics. So I was like, this is all well and good, but I don't know how. I don't know where to start. But it kept coming. Every now and then it would come to my mind. I'd be washing the dishes and it'd be like, you need to deal with your H. pylori and your past. And then around June, July, August in 2023, I'd been feeling really flat, like not at all myself. I thought perhaps it was the closest to feeling depressed that I had been. I felt just so down. But I am not someone who suffers depression. And so I was like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. There's got to be a reason for this feeling. So I thought something's changed in my body. So I went and saw the GP, and I love and respect my GP. And I told him how I was feeling, and I asked if he could please run some blood tests. I'd also been experiencing nausea quite regularly, so I suspected the H. pylori obviously was still there because of this thought that kept coming to mind and the fact that I knew I'd never fully dealt with it. He ran blood tests and found there was no reason for me to be feeling flat in the bloods. The bloods did show that I still had the H. pylori, which probably explained the nausea. The blood test showed my blood sugar levels were high, and we discussed my weight, which had increased in the previous year, and I was, a bit overweight at the time. So we discussed losing weight, which would also potentially the change of diet would help with the drop in blood sugar levels. I had bad sinus regularly. We didn't really discuss this at the time, but it was also going on. I'd had bad sinus, which responded well to antihistamine. So I felt there was some type of, allergic something going on. To be honest, it was since having COVID in 2022 that I felt like I kept having terrible sinus. I'm now not sure how much of that was a physical change post-COVID and how much was a metaphysical response to having had COVID and the whole COVID life and existence and world we were living in. So for a while I was taking antihistamine almost every day for quite long periods on and off. And then came the day that I heard of Chris and Billy. I'd never really listened to podcasts before. I'm a visual person, so hadn't really sort of started with the whole audio book or podcast bandwagon. But I followed Jo Whitten from Quirky Cooking on Facebook, and she advertised a podcast that she had between herself and Billy, and it caught my attention. And I decided to listen, and it honestly changed my life.
So cool.
It was the start of all of this big change and the answer to my you need to deal with your H. pylori and your past. So here was Philly telling Jo all about the Ending Body Burnout program method and digging into root causes for all kinds of health issues, which I had all kinds of health issues. And Philly mentioned that she herself had H. pylori and had gotten rid of it naturally. So here I was. I felt like here's someone who's talking about the two things that I needed to deal with, my past and my H. pylori in the one podcast.
That's crazy.
Like even now, I just, I
got goosebumps.
It is crazy. Yeah. So I signed up for the 3-day session that you were running around that same time. And I think before the session's even finished, I knew that I needed to sign up. It was funny though, because I was well practiced at putting everyone and everything before myself. I tried to talk my husband into signing up.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. And I knew we could only afford for one of us to do it at a time. And so I thought, oh, look, he really needs some help. He should go and do this. Even though I had this.
Even though you got your spiritual answer.
I know. And I'm like, oh, Rob, you should really do this. And he takes a very long time to make decisions and the doors were going to close.
Yeah.
And I'm like, blow this. I am just going to sign myself up. And that was part of this whole change for me. Even from then going, you know what, blow this. I'm just going to do this for me because I can't let those doors closed and miss this chance to sign up.
Yeah, that is so cool. So cool. So the first step in our method is getting answers, and you'd already got a lot of answers, and there are a lot of things too that it's just like, we don't really know why you're feeling this way.
Yeah.
So in the method, we're working on the physical and also the deeper metaphysical. And I always it's a nice way to start in terms of let's run some labs. Let's see if there's anything that's missing that hasn't been addressed or looked at. It's a quick win. You just have to give some body samples, fluids, and then it's like, ding, we have some answers that go beyond what GPs and medical specialists test for. So from a body system point of view, are you happy to share what showed up on your lab tests, how you felt, how it might have validated how you were feeling?
Yeah. So my stress levels were so high that even doing the test was really stressful.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I was worried that I wouldn't put enough saliva in the tubes.
I wouldn't do it right.
I wouldn't do it right. Yeah. Somehow I could mess up a pee test and saliva test.
Yeah.
So I was a bit strung out about doing the test. And then I thought, blow this. I just have to, bite the bullet and do it.
Yeah.
So we did the test for the adrenals. So I wasn't really surprised when we found that I had the adrenal fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like stress hormones running on high, probably from the day that you were born.
Yeah, pretty much. Definitely. I was a highly strung kid and for lots of reasons, including trauma. I've probably been in fight or flight mode the majority of my life, moving from one trauma to another. And I've always been an empathetic person as well. So there's the people-pleasing perfectionist patterns that were there, absolutely putting everyone else first always, but also taking on other people's feelings and emotions. I'd really carry that. And then I'd feel responsible for those feelings somehow, which was causing a lot of stress.
Which is huge when you're carrying a lot of stuff for yourself, like everything that you just talked about with the health issues plus past traumas. Like that's a lot of stuff to carry for one human being, let alone like the whole world's feelings and emotions.
Yeah. Like I was over the top. Like I could drive down the street and see someone walking along the road and just like, I don't know, just take on what was going on for them. Sounds crazy, I know, but yeah. So probably the most validating thing though for me was when we found that I had low dopamine, low adrenaline and serotonin, because that explained why I was feeling so low. That's why I went to the doctor and asked for blood test. It was that feeling of flat that I had. So that explained that real physical change that I knew had happened in my body. And I've always been quite sensitive to my physical changes, even though a lot's gone on. And I'm a bit quite intuitive to these things. So when I went to the doctor and I asked him to do the test, you know, to see what was wrong, I was bummed when the bloods didn't show anything because I knew there was something that changed.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most validating and exciting for me was when you found that my dopamine and my adrenaline and my serotonin was low.
Yeah.
Because that was a real answer.
Yeah.
And then I had something I could do something with.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I felt.
And the neurotransmitters and also the adrenals, it's almost like this this crossroad with the physical and the metaphysical, or the body and the mind, because it is a physical organ and it is producing hormones and chemicals, but then also it's so intricately connected with the deeper unconscious baggage, repressed emotions, unprocessed trauma side of things as well, because like essentially it just gets you stuck in fight flight. And then these parts of the body which support good mood and energy and motivation and feel good feelings, it's just kind of like, you know, you've got this physical stuckness but also this metaphysical stuckness at the same time.
So, yes, I guess that was the main thing that came up for me with the tests.
Yeah. So when we get body system or lab tests back, our big question is always why? Why did this happen in the first place? I mean, because you could stop at just taking a bucket load of supplements again, which in the past you responded to, but it still wasn't addressing the deeper reason as to why the body systems were burning out in the first place. So you can't outsop the root cause. So next step is, well, let's dig into the deeper root causes. And there's always like levels and layers of that as well. So there's more surface level ones, things that we can see, how we're eating, moving, sleeping, toxins in our environment, which is all really important for pillars of health. But what a lot of people miss or aren't even aware of is what's happening at an unconscious point of view and the deeper beliefs that we have about ourselves and the internal tigers that are constantly chasing and running around our nervous system without us even realizing what's happening. So are you happy to dig into the root cause? What was the root cause for you and how did you get there? How did it feel when you found it?
Yeah, sure. So I've gone back over some notes that you sent me, you know, after each session we'd have together. And I guess like for so many things, when we decide to make a change, a why is important. And in my notes, I had that my why was because I want to live, not just be alive. I want to enjoy my children before they grow up. And I want to show my kids how to live. I really want to show my kids how to live. I want to show them there's more to life than just surviving and just, you know, getting up each day and running this rat race that we so often get in the habit of calling life when there's nothing, you know, life-like about it. So for me, I felt like to start with, it was pretty short and sweet, to be honest.
You got results really quickly.
I did. Well, I felt like I did. Yeah. I was shocked. I thought, oh, this will be, you know, I'm going to be home and hose in no time.
It's like 2 months, I'm done. Woo!
I know, yeah. So I had my initial consult with you, Philly, in September. And I think the weekly workshop sessions with both Chris and Philly started around the same time when we started going through the actual program as a group. Setting aside the time on Wednesday nights to do the program in itself was part of the process for me. We made Wednesday night takeaway night. I would order tea
awesome.
so that everyone was fed and I didn't have to put the energy into it. And then I would go and I'd shut myself in my office and I'd get on the group calls.
Awesome.
And putting that time aside was a big part of the process for me, to be honest. And just recognizing that I was important enough to take the time out and put the attention on me, so I could tap into my thoughts and feelings and forget about, everybody else's problems that was often all consuming. And then ultimately my subconscious. And it was part of teaching me to trust myself, that I was going to look after myself. I really needed to feel that in every cell of my body, that I was making myself important and I was looking after me. So I started in early September, and by the 25th of October, I had my I am statement and my deepest root cause belief. Woohoo, go me. I was so fast. I was so quick. I got it.
Yep.
I'd been really open.
It took a little while though. It took a while for you to be able to really land on it. You're like, oh, I think it's that, but I don't really know. And then I remember there was, I don't know if it was in a group call or an email or something, but it's like, oh, this is it.
Also, for our listeners, an I am statement is a statement of belief about yourself.
An identity-based belief.
And it really rules the roost. It controls the whole show, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'd been open. I'd been very open, to be honest. I dove in absolutely head first and was really paying attention to the thoughts that started to flow as soon as I started the program. If I had a thought, a random thought, I'd really dig deeper into it and question why I was having that thought and where it was coming from. I wasn't discounting the things that were coming to mind, which I think was important. I started doing the meditations using the app that came as part of the program, which was something I'd never done before. I'd never meditated before.
I think that was one of your things too, when you're like, do I have to do that part before you joined up? I think you had a question around that.
Yeah, and I found that it was actually really relaxing and thought-provoking. It was really just this beautiful, guided, relaxing story, I guess, or narrative that would bring, these thoughts to mind from the subconscious. And then I could ask questions, and then I could really, focus on and concentrate on that. Sometimes I'd have a word or thought come up that I just wouldn't be able to ignore. And if it kept coming up, I knew I really couldn't ignore. So I gave it the time and space it needed. And I'd go deeper and discover why the thought was coming up. One night during a Wednesday night group call, when you, Chris and Philly, were reading through a list of possible deep root cause beliefs a person might have about themselves, and the list was also sort of put up on the screen to read, a number of ideas were listed, and then my eyes found I don't matter on the page, and I immediately became emotional. And there was a knowing that this was my belief about myself, that I don't matter. And I felt really sad for little Kimberley. I actually went just straight to younger self. Yeah. I just maybe being a mum helped with that, I don't know, but just for this child that was within who decided this about themselves, about myself, when it was a straight up lie. I knew it was a lie. I knew consciously it was a lie, but I also knew that it was true to me. I wanted to apologise to younger Kimberley and love her. I wanted to assure her that she did matter and that she didn't need to keep believing this lie about herself. I remember after the call, I went into my husband and my daughter after getting off the call, and I told them, I figured it out. I said, I feel like I don't matter. And my husband was like, of course you matter. Good husband that he is, of course you matter. And my daughter, who's she's 16 and we often call her the wise one. She's an interesting child. She said, I can see that for you, Mum. I can see that for you. And I was like,
as in she can see that how that plays out for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She could see that she could see that the way I lived was as if I felt I didn't matter.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And so And if you think about it, this comes back to also my why, like showing them how, like, I want them to know how to live, like even just having this conversation, finding this about myself, having this conversation with her.
Yeah.
And, okay, so now I know this about myself. I'm going to do something about it, because that's not okay. And so we talked together, and I cried and cried. And we actually started as a family identifying core beliefs that we had about ourselves from there.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. That's like ripples of healing.
And even now sometimes, the same daughter of mine, she'll come up to me and she'll go, so I've just recognised this about myself.
Awesome.
And, what should I do? And we'll talk it through. And, it's really, it's changed our family. This idea of, I'm going to use the word control. I don't know if it's the right way, but, being controlled by this internal belief, whatever it is, and then the impact that that's having on us. Like, I feel like I'm starting to see us as a family shake stuff off quicker than we would have in the past. Because we're almost looking for it too. We're looking for we're questioning these things. If you have the thought or the feeling, it's like, well, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And what could this mean for me? And getting rid of it before it takes root, so it doesn't become a root cause belief.
So cool. Can I say something as well? It's just so interesting that the deepest root belief was I don't matter. And then the thing that almost caused you not to join the program was the very root of the belief. It's just like, I don't matter enough, but you do, husband. Husband, you do it. You do it. You do it.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's why when I say, like, even just putting the time aside and doing it, like, for me, because of what my root cause belief ended up being, every part of doing the program, every time I would listen to a meditation and put myself first and do that, every step I took was, in a way, teaching myself that you actually do matter. So it was counteracting that belief.
Absolutely.
Every step of it, every part.
Yeah, reprogramming, rewiring, giving the unconscious mind like new evidence. It's like, no, I do matter. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe that's partly why I have responded well to it. I don't know. So my full I am statement did take a bit longer. So to find, so the I don't matter was quite quick coming up with that. And then the I am statement, which I did email you about, I was like, hooray, I found it. My I am statement was that I am invisible and I don't matter.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound a bit crazy, but I literally have had times in my life where I have felt invisible, where I have been, say, walking through a shop and there's someone I've met maybe once or twice before, so someone I don't know very well, but I'll see them sort of coming towards, me on the opposite side of the shopping mall and kind of question, I wonder if they'll notice me. I wonder if they'll say hello or whatever. Like, I've literally almost felt invisible when really, why should they not notice me if I've noticed them?
Well, it's a good example of the deepest core belief is the machine that drives everything. So it's then how you perceive yourself and your existence in this world. So of course, like it would be like, oh, maybe they don't see me. Am I visible? Yeah. It's like, well, if that's what your unconscious believes to be true, that's going to play out in your real life. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my I am, that I'm invisible and I don't matter. And in the program, we talk about a choose to know statement about ourselves. So what we decide to know about ourselves. And I wrote an I choose to know statement, and writing it in itself had a huge impact and went a long way to me letting go of this belief about myself. Just putting the words on paper about myself and reading it aloud also helped a lot. That I found the app that's available with the program with the Ending Body Burnout Method was also really helpful. The nervous system regulation activities were really great and had like a big impact. Coming up with a safety anchor is one of the activities that really helped me a lot. Because of what my deepest root cause belief was, I really had to start showing myself self-love and doing things that were important to me and loving myself, and stop like putting a stop to putting everything else first and being a martyr. I had to start prioritizing myself and showing me that I could trust me to listen and act on what my needs are, which was an interesting way to start living because it was very unusual for me.
So cool. Okay, so all of this happened really quick for you, and we'll get into next chapters in a seckie. But what challenges did you have? Because everyone, I mean, it's pretty rare that someone's just like did the thing and bang, yay, everything's better. What challenges did you have to overcome or come up against?
I was hoping that would be me. At that point, I was hoping that would be me. So, the first challenge I had to that I had to overcome was not really something to overcome, but rather something to accept. So when I received my first delivery of supplements, I felt really rebellious. And I'm not a rebellious person. I am a people pleaser. And if the sign says don't step on the grass, I do not step on that grass. In the past, I've done all these diets and taken all the pills and done all the things exactly how I was supposed to do it. And anyway, I received the parcel of supplements to take, and I did not want to take them. And I dug my heels in, and I don't know how long I had them before I started taking them, but I remember they sat on the bench for a while.
It's so funny.
And and I was also supposed to change my diet to a healing diet for the adrenal fatigue, and I did it to an extent, but I did not do it perfectly. I did give up the coffee, which was huge. I had an awful headache for probably 2 weeks. It was shocking. Otherwise, I did what I could, but I didn't kill myself to get everything right, which was really strange for me. Usually I would have wanted to do everything perfectly, and I would have been riddled with guilt, as if the whole world knew that I was being naughty and didn't do things the way I should have been doing it. And I remember bringing it up with you, Philly, in one of my appointments, and I was like, what's wrong with me? And you pointed out that you thought I was probably breaking perfectionist patterns, which I was.
Yeah, well, the reason behind that too was that you didn't have like the guilt and the angst that you probably would have in the past. Or it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad, I'm not doing the right thing. The way that the conversation that we had, it was actually you were just looking at it curiously, and it's like, oh, this is so interesting. But you didn't feel like you're a naughty little schoolgirl that didn't do her homework.
No, where I would have. I literally would have felt like the whole world would have known in the past.
Yeah. So in a way, it was sort of like I viewed it, and I think you did in the end too. It's like, this is actually just healing because like you can be in this space and do things imperfectly, maybe be a bit slower to take action and be okay with that and know that you still matter and that you're important and that you're wonderful.
And I think that was the time I felt like I started just being rather than striving all the time. I just started to just be, which was really nice.
Yeah.
And then so I signed up for the Ending Body Burnout Method in September. 25th of October, I had my IM statement. On the 11th of November, when I had my appointment with you, Philly, I told you I was feeling the most relaxed I had ever felt in my adult life. And the tiger had stopped chasing me, and I had this inner peace and a tangible calm about me. And I can still remember the call and the newness of that feeling. I can still remember accepting this is a way I've not been before, to have this calm, this peace.
And your physical symptoms had
11th.
changed as well, like the sinusitis, I think from memory had gone.
Yes.
There was more energy. Yeah.
Oh, early on, like the energy levels just became consistent throughout the day, which was just unheard of before. So that was the 11th of November. And then on the 15th of November, 4 days after our appointment, my family discovered that my brother had died. His life and now his death are a huge part of who I am, and the shock was huge. I literally felt like I was somewhat brain damaged for weeks following his death. Like my brain just didn't function normally. My dad died when I was 10, and now my brother and our family just felt so small. His official cause of death is undetermined, so there's unanswered questions still. There always will be. What I quickly realised, though, was that I was no longer being triggered by people or comments that would have triggered me in the past during this process. I remember thinking, and I shared with Philly, that if I didn't start the program when I did, which was, my God thing for me, I don't think I would have gotten through my brother's death. I really don't. I think our relationship was really complex and we were really close. At times I operated as a carer more than a sister, which had been sort of my role for at least a year or so leading up to his death. We had shared traumas together and the feelings were intense. Yeah. And I don't know how I would have gone had I not come so far in my healing before that happened. But here I was, and I was still standing, and I was still putting one foot in front of the other. And incredibly, and, God did this for me, I was positioned to continue to heal through the program despite this huge tragedy for me. Soon after my appointment with Philly in December, I discovered that guilt had been a default emotion since forever. I subconsciously interpreted a story I'd been told regarding my birth, my existence, as if I should feel guilty about being alive. And I did timeline therapy with you, Philly, and we broke off guilt as a default. And I rarely feel guilt anymore.
So cool.
I really don't. It's actually interesting. Sometimes something will happen. I don't wait to see if the guilt comes, but I'm curious to see if the guilt will show up. And it just doesn't.
Yeah, that's huge.
In January, I realised also that I was operating out of an unreasonable amount of responsibility. I think after Dad died, I was 10. I had a 3-year-old sister. I became overly responsible. I felt like everyone else's well-being and happiness was my responsibility, that it was up to me to always make everything okay for everyone and keep the peace in every situation. Because I was 100% living to be a peacekeeper, it meant I was living like I was walking on eggshells all the time. And this, I think, was the start, if not earlier, because I know this root cause belief about myself would have come from earlier than 10, but I wouldn't allow myself to have my own needs or feelings met. In fact, I probably never even consciously stopped to think about what I might need or feel. So then after that, the death of my brother made me question my priorities in life and remembering my why, which was because I wanted to live and not just be alive, and I wanted to enjoy my children before they've grown up, and I want to show my kids how to live. I started considering making big changes in my life to better live out my why. And because time passes so quickly and my teenage girls are too soon going to be independent, I started really thinking about what I might change in my life. So while thinking about making big changes, I started having back issues. One morning after my husband flew to work.
Can I say when this happened? So I remember we had a book launch party in Brisbane
Yes.
that you came
Yes.
to, and you're like, I feel amazing. I love my life.
Yeah.
And then that night is like the back, which and it correlated with the decision to leave work as well. The back was like, not safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking about these choices, and I realised I couldn't stand up straight this morning, the morning after your book launch.
Mm-hmm.
And
It wasn't the book launch, people.
I was like, were the chairs that uncomfortable? I realised I couldn't stand up straight, and I could barely move without excruciating pain. Like I really could hardly move. And it turned out that I had a bulging disc that had started causing grief, and which I found interesting. I later learned lots of people have bulging discs that don't cause pain.
Yeah.
Mine decided to start causing pain. And then 3 weeks later, a second bulging disc joined in. So this was the start of 6 months of back pain disrupting my life, and it really did disrupt my life. My chiropractor actually commented that lower back pain can relate to stability. And Louise Hay says lower back pain is the fear of money or lack of financial support.
Yeah.
Which is interesting given the changes I was considering making.
Because it didn't make sense financially, to leave the job. It's just like, doesn't make sense, but this feels in alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I decided to give up my job after 10 years with the company. It was a job that I loved. I really loved my job, and I planned on staying there until I retired. I had said to my poor boss years ago, I said, I plan on staying here till I'm an old lady, because that was my plan. He didn't want to work till he was too old, though, and he was like, as long as you're not too old, because he planned on retiring early-ish. I was honestly very happy there. Yeah, and it was a great job. It was a really hard decision to make, but I also knew it was exactly what I needed to do. So for the first couple of weeks after I left my job, which was in August, I was unwell with a head cold, which wasn't really surprising, give up work and hit the wall. Well, hopefully it will become a surprising thing in the future. Hopefully this isn't something that's going to happen, but it was, a pattern that happened. I gave up my job and I became unwell. When I was well, I planned to go out to coffee with a couple of friends. We see each other a few times a year. And my husband sent me a text message that morning saying, happy first day of your new life. He was at the airport waiting to fly out to work. And I got in the car and I drove towards a coffee shop. And it was somewhere I hadn't been before. And the traffic was really heavy, and I decided to drive the route I was most familiar with, even though Siri was trying to tell me to go a different way. I often don't like to listen to Siri, and this day wasn't any different. I headed on my way down my brother's road, which would take me to the coffee shop, and a car ran into the back of me and wrote my car off right in front of my brother's house. Not only did this bring up other issues to work through, but I ended up with neck pain from this accident. And I think the thing that really has hit me then was that life doesn't stop happening. No matter how far we come in our healing journey, the punches keep on rolling.
Yeah.
But this program has taught me how to handle them differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so car accident, bulging disc, in pain. You're also on a lot of pain medication, and like gut was flaring up and stuff as well. So then in our program, in the Ending Body Burnout Method, not all clients do it, but some people choose to do it. So there's a trauma therapy called TRTP trauma therapy that I'm certified in. I love it. It's amazing. It goes like even deeper into the healing process, especially for people who have had past traumas, whether it's big or little, it doesn't really matter. But sometimes there are things that are like deeper and need more excavation to uncover and come out. So you chose to do that. And I'm like, I think that it would be good to hear in terms of the listeners hearing, why you felt like you needed to go another layer deeper, and also the challenge of like saying yes to that as well.
Yeah. So one day I was driving along in pain, and I'd been in pain a lot last year. My migraines had started sort of flaring up as well, and I'd had the back pain and the neck pain from the accident, and I was getting low on my painkillers, and I thought I need to make a doctor's appointment and ask for more pain medication. And I felt like pain was no longer my norm, and it was certainly not something I wanted to be my norm, and that I needed to go deeper somehow, but I wasn't exactly sure sort of why, but I knew it was a flag. It was a red flag that I needed to go deeper. The same afternoon, I'd been thinking that I needed to contact the doctor and make an appointment for more pain meds. Coincidentally, and
as it happens, the podcast.
Yeah. So, Billy, you released your podcast with Judith Richards about TRTP therapy, and I listened to the podcast, and I really felt I needed to do it. And I knew about it because you'd mentioned it before, but I hadn't really thought too much about it because I didn't think it was something that I needed until now.
Yeah, which you'd received a lot of and created a lot of great results for you. And then
I had, absolutely.
Yeah, and then the brothers passing and, the back stuff kind of was like, I think there was a part where you kind of felt a bit stuck and where to from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I won't lie, it's not something we could really afford. I had given up my job and money was tight, and my car had just been written off, and we hadn't yet come up with a solution for my new car, and I was about to get a payout from the insurance, but it wasn't going to be much. It wasn't going to be enough for a car. And after discussing it with my husband, though, we agreed that I would use some of that money to do the TRTP therapy. We just felt that I had to do it. And I told you, Philly, that I was worried about the cost and whether it would be worth it, and that I had really big expectations, which was largely because of laying out this money that I didn't really have to do the program. And so the TRTP is done over the 3 sessions. And let's just say after the first session, I told you, Philly, that the program was worth the money.
And it also solved a lot of money issues too, or like money worries.
Yeah. And so probably the best way that I could describe TRTP, because I've tried to tell a couple of people about it, and, I was talking to my husband about it, is it's kind of like a guided choose your own adventure where you're the main character. And it was just phenomenal. My love for self increased tenfold. I was able to work through traumatic events from my past that I actually really, truly dealt with now. It was able to help me help the new me move forward, leaving old ways behind, but not the old me behind. I really, I still love every part of me. I was able to work through grief caused by the loss of my brother and to heal my heart a little more. And I'm not the same person I was before doing TRTP. I'm just not. I feel like I'm the closest I have ever been in my adult life to the me who I was born to be before life and life events altered my being. Yeah. I really believe now that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And I feel like my soul has been restored through the TRTP.
So beautiful. I remember one of the things, so at the start it's like, what do you want? I mean, these are the questions we ask right at the start of Ending Body Burnout Method program as well. But before we did the first session for TRTP, like, happy. I want to be happy. Like, I am happy. The way that you were describing it, it's like I am, like my life is good. I'm happy, but I think I can be even more happier. And then afterwards, it's like, this is what happiness feels like.
Yeah.
It's like I'm happy, like I'm genuinely happy.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was really like stripping away all the filth and pain and stuff of life and being me is what has made me happy, just being who I was designed to be.
Yeah, grounding into who you already are. You just had to let go of some layers first.
Yeah, yeah.
Something that was interesting too that you said, because part of that process we do go back into the past and reimagine the endings of past events. But afterwards you're like, I can't even remember bad memories anymore. Bad memories would come to the surface, but it's like they're like completely reprogrammed.
Yes.
Like I actually just see the good things in those memories.
Yes. Because something you would say during the program was, it's over now. And so I would have these memories, in particular surrounding my brother's death, and things would try to come to the surface. And I knew if I really wanted to dig deep, I could find it. But I would just have this little voice of, it's over now. And I could just be really at peace with that and just be like, yeah, it's over now, and not have to think those thoughts.
Yeah, it's over and you're safe now. Yeah. Okay, this has been amazing. And I'm so grateful for you sharing so honestly and generously. And I think in detail is really good too, because sometimes people can be like, I got great results and this is how I was and this is how it happened. But when you can go a bit more granular, and also that it's not often like this linear, you start here and you get the results. It's like life is happening and life is unfolding, and then it's who you are and who you're becoming and how you're responding to those and creating the tools and resources inside of you, and knowing who you are is then what sets you up for long-term health and wellness. And essentially you are your own self-healer, self-regulator. Yeah, I love it. Okay, 2 more questions. What was different about our Ending Body Burnout Method? Because when you started with us and you sent through all your paperwork and your health history, like if I printed all those documents out, it probably would have been, like a book size. So you tried a lot before. Yeah. What do you feel was different with our method?
So I think to start with, accepting me exactly, the program accepts you or me exactly who I am and where I'm at. And then in a way, the responsibility of my healing was put back onto me. So it was a little confronting at first to be asked in the program, how is your being unwell serving you? What's the pain? How's pain serving you? How is the illness serving you?
How is it a benefit? How is it paying? What's the payoff?
And that in a way we have choices about how we feel. But I learned to be able to recognize when my body was really trying to speak to me in love by sending me pain or illness signals. So it probably the Ending Body Burnout Method taught me to I guess read my body differently and not be too upset at my symptoms, to actually take them as being helpful and digging deep into them rather than just trying to put a Band-Aid on, just trying to get rid of the symptom, full stop. Also that there's no set timeline. I was really thrilled that things moved really quickly for me in the beginning, and I thought that I'd be done and dusted in no time with how quickly things were working and how deeply things were working for me. But then life had other ideas, and that's been okay. Yeah. Like here I am, like it's more than 12 months later. And to be honest, like this last year, we haven't done a lot of physical healing work. Like a lot of what we've been doing has been the metaphysical, and yet I've come so far in leaps and bounds because I have been learning to be me, and also just just dealing with things where I'm at that time rather than trying to stick a timeline on it, which I think has actually meant it stuck, has actually meant the work has really worked. Well,
I think that's an interesting point too. Now there's a gift in that you got some really beautiful miracle results in like a very short period of time at the start, because then that's like, wow, this works and I am powerful and I can create this and I have responsibility and I'm all powerful. I can heal. So that's kind of good too as a gift where it's like, oh, okay, well, when things pop up, I can do this again. And I can go deeper as and when needed, and I can heal myself and I can reset. But then also the macro lens of healing is that it's like it's going to be up and down depending on what's happening with life. And it's the maturing into that as well. And I've seen it for myself that there does come a time where your body no longer needs to send you pain signals. It's like the earlier signals would be, oh, I'm feeling a bit out of alignment, or I'm feeling a little bit, maybe like a tad anxious, or, oh, a little old patterns popping up again. Or maybe there might be like the subtle signs of an old physical symptom. But that's the maturing into the process and connecting with yourself and constantly having a relationship with yourself that you understand when you need to change something or have a conversation or an apology or whatever it is. So I think you're a beautiful living testament of doing the work, and not just in a quick fix way where it's like, did a course for 2 months. Yay, I'm better. It's like, oh, but it didn't work because things have come back.
Yes. Yeah.
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 So good. Okay. Last question. Cause you are someone who I think just has so much wisdom. And you've really gone deep into the process and the method and like embodying and integrating everything that we teach. So if someone is out there and they're stuck in the cycle of body burnout, maybe they've tried a bunch of stuff or maybe they haven't, but they just don't know if it's possible for them, what are some words of hope that you could share with them?
Yeah, well, I would say to start with that, where there's life, there is hope. Mm-hmm. I really believe that. We have literally spent 6 figures on my health over, the years. And I understand financial stress related to health. I understand finding the energy to try something new can be almost impossible to muster at times. But I would say this is the best money I've spent in a long time and the best use of my time. The changes that I'm experiencing are incredible. And like if we look at the list of health issues I had, in the previous 20 years, I do not expect this next 20 years to have much on the list at all, which is, amazing.
Yeah.
As I said before, I'm a Christian and I very much believe there's been a spiritual element to my change too. I heard the lyrics of a song a few days ago. I hadn't heard this song before. And speaking of God saying that he sees you and he's healing every lie you believe. And knowing that I had this podcast coming up and sharing the changes I've experienced, the words really struck a chord. I think for many, when we go searching for healing, we don't go looking to heal the lies that we believe. But I've found that through the Ending Body Burnout Method, that's exactly where we should be looking, that, what lies do we need to uncover and heal from?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. And then the truth is found.
Yeah. Yes.
That's just the natural
Amen
consequence.
To that.
Amen to that, sister.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I've got goosebumps many times during that conversation, and I love you, and you're just the best. It's been a beautiful, we're so privileged to be that you were led to us and that we've been able to be part of this chapter of your journey. So thank you so much for sharing it with everyone today.
Oh, thank you for giving me the chance to.
Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout Assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.